this is you'll be participating in a little game. And if I had, if we were in person, I would have Chupa Chups as prizes, but the prize today can just be pride in winning. So nothing material, just you can feel good that you won. Okay, so Erin, I liked your comment, your perspective on the snow, that it's good exercise because we have like a foot of snow outside right now. And I just know after this, that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, it's really heavy here too. It's like that, packing snow.
Yeah, I haven't been out yet. Mike, my husband, came in and he said it was a lot. So he did the morning session now of snow removal, and I'll do the afternoon session. And it's nice to see so many familiar names as I've been in the chat for JJ's session and Brian's session, which were both great.
And just so you all know, I put Kara's website in the chat, so you can see a lot of different resources there.
And Erin, you'll be monitoring the chat, right?
Yes, I will. And I'll let you know, like anytime, if there's something urgent, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. It's 11 o'clock, so I'll get started. So in this session, we are going to do a game. You're going to play a game that's called Quick Grid Bingo. I originally learned about this from Martina Becks in May of 2020 and used it online, but brought it to the classroom as well. So we are going to do two things here. We're going to play that game. You're going to see the game, and maybe some of you have played it before. But then we're also just going to go over some of the acronyms and some of the language that we see kind of all over the world language teaching world. And so for some of you, some of the things might be new. Some of you might know way more than I know, or some of it might be just refreshing and kind of solidifying some of the knowledge that we already know about ADI and CI and world language teaching and proficiency. So first, and I am going to actually look at the chat here for this, a few questions. So this game that we're going to play, Quick Grid Bingo, you can use it with any text that you do, anything, or really not even a text, but just information. So just a quick question, if people could just drop in the chat and just write number 1 next to it, because we have a few questions. What types of texts do you read in the class? So people could just write like number 1 and then just any type of text that you read. This is kind of what JJ was talking about, with students are reluctant to talk. Well, I can answer. So I'm not seeing any. Oh no, I see it. I just wasn't scrolling. I thought no one was answering. I thought, oh goodness. All right, let's see here. Get out of the bottom. Short stories, articles, songs, stories, short stories, novels, stories, lots of stories. That's what I use a lot. Oh, Senor Woolley, news articles. That's from Martha. Stories we've created, authentic resources. Great. So lots of news. Yeah, definitely. So we have all sorts of different texts. Any of those things, you can use this game as a post reading activity. And then what are some of your favorite songs too? What are some of your favorite post reading activities? So if you could just write number 2 and then answer. And we can also be getting some good ideas here. So it could be as simple as like just comprehension questions, illustrations. I love illustrations. Anything that drives them to get back in the text. Yeah, so true, false, retelling with drawings, games, questions, mentiroso, running dictation, write, draw, pass, pop-up, role play, class discussion, talk and turn, illustrations, all sorts of great ideas. Okay, and then within those post reading activities, what skills do you think, if you think about some things that you just put in the chat, what skills do those activities include? Are they mostly reading? Are they writing, speaking, listening? What are they? So that's question number 3. Listening. retelling, recall, and that could be speaking or writing. Most focus on listening or reading. Great. Reading. Yeah, so kind of a lot of reading ones I'm seeing here. That's great. And some speaking, but sometimes a lot of them are just more input. Listening, speaking to culminate in a retelling of the story. Good. Great. All right. So this one, quick word bingo, it includes writing, listening, reading, and speaking. So, or it can include speaking. But that's kind of the least of what it includes. So that's why I really like this game that we're going to play. And then so we're going to play the game, and I'll talk more about that as we play. But the second piece of this is, what are some buzzwords related to teaching and world language? Or specifically, I should say, related to teaching world language. Oops, excuse me. Comprehensible input, compelling, the effective filter, input, natural communication, input, purposeful communication, just CI, target language, repetition. Okay, great. So I have a list here of some of those things. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, I should have had a song. Maybe I can sing for you. No, I'm not going to sing. On a piece of paper, what I'd like everyone to do, and you could see this list here. So let me back up a little bit. So we don't have a text here, but I'm imagining that teachers have read a lot or learned a lot about teaching a world language. So we can imagine that this list of things that I have here is from the text that we've read. So in class, it could be from your authentic resource, from an article, from a song, from a chapter in a book, from a story, and you just write answers. So these are answers to questions. And in Quick Grid Bingo, I am going to ask questions and you're going to cross off the answer if you have it. So I'm going to ask you, everyone right now, to have a piece of paper, and you can see the instructions here. On a piece of paper, make a 3x3 grid and fill in the grid with 9 of these. Now, like our students, frequently people will not choose number 14 because they don't want to write that. You have students who are going to choose 7, 8, 9, 12, 17. But I'd like you could still choose the long ones. You don't have to write the whole thing. You could just write for number 14, proficiency is real world, ... their proficiency level. Okay, so just take, let's just take a few minutes to write that on a piece of paper. So a 3x3 grid. Are we almost ready? Are people good to go? If you just want to enter in the chat, done. Okay, great. Again, you can just write the beginning and then ... and the last word. And if people are interested, you can see that I put this presentation I'll share with you later, but I didn't want to share it before because It would give away some of the whole game that we're playing, but there's a link here that says doc for quick reference, and it's just basically, it's this slide, because I'm going to move away from this slide in a moment. Okay, so some people are done. And if you're not done, that's okay, just take your time. But if you are done, in the chat, and I would do this with students as well, that's because we always have students who write really slowly, and we're all kind of waiting for that student. So in the chat, I would have students do this with partners. What are some possible questions that these words or phrases would answer? So for instance, number 18, the question would be, what does ACTFL stand for? So if anyone can think about what question would I ask this would be one of the answers to. So if you just want to put like number 12, what could I ask, if that makes sense? Kind of like Jeopardy, yeah, Keith. But this is just kind of activating students' brains. It's a little bit trickier because, say we're doing it on a chapter, it could be like the name was Erin, and it would be like, the question would be, who's the main character? Or 45 or 47, how old is Kara? What are the good? So what are the AP themes? Good. What does TPRS stand for? Great. What is total physical response? According to Krashen, see, this is what I'm looking for. Great. What does ADI stand for? What are the 3 modes of communication? Great. So with students, as you're waiting for students to finish writing, to fill in the grid, you can ask them, well, what questions is the teacher now going to ask? What is superior and distinguished? Great. Good. All right, I'm going to move on, and we're going to play now. Imagine I have Chupa Chups, those lollipops ready to go for you. All right, so now, there's another, so here's our first question. Now, this is a little bit different because we're on Zoom and we're not in the classroom. For this presentation, I wrote the questions. Typically, when I play this, students do not see the questions, they just hear it. So I would just say it, but just for us, because it's a little bit different here, I can't check in, make sure everybody's listening. I typed out the questions. I would also have projected all of the answers for students. Okay, so what is ACTFL? All right, and then I would repeat the question. I'm saying it several times, and then someone would raise their hand and say, identify which one it is, and I would kind of cross it off on this sheet. So we already said what that one is. It's the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Language. Okay, so if you have that one, you just cross it off. And now sometimes, and you're going to see me doing this, I will be talking. I'll talk a little bit more about the answer, but some of them are just going to zip right through. So hopefully everyone knew that one. All right, next one. What is ADI? So what is ADI? Who can type it in the, we'll do like we're with students. What is ADI? Someone wants to type that in to the chat. There we go, acquisition-driven instruction. Good. So ADI, we've kind of recently seen a big shift from talking about saying I'm a CI teacher, I teach CI, to more of a focus of saying what I do in my classroom is acquisition-driven instruction. And then we kind of have a difference, a couple to explain the difference between learning and acquisition. So this is just adding on to that answer here. So when we think about learning, in the past, we think about like grammar and vocabulary, learning about the language. There's a real focus on mastery of forms and spelling, a focus on output, and a conscious study of the language. And the rigor really comes from memorization, right? Memorization of, sorry, lost my screen, of verb forms, memorization of random long lists of clothing or car. I don't know if anyone ever taught that chapter, but then when we think about acquisition or acquisition-driven instruction, we're thinking about learning in the language, focus on communication, focus on language classroom. It actually feels easier, right? my classes, it feels easy sometimes. But then when we look back, like, look how much you've learned, students. And then the rigor is really on maintaining that focus, right? Like listening, being active in the class, responding, acting things out, standing up, moving, everything else. So that's kind of the difference between learning the language and then acquisition. So the acquisition-driven classroom. Okay, and what is CI? I'm sure everyone knows this answer. Comprehensible input. Right, obviously, if you're here, you probably know that, which is one of the biggest parts, probably the acquisition-driven of classroom or instruction. And what is the goal of ADI? Oh, let's see. Does anyone have that? You want to drop it in the chat? What is the goal of ADI? What is the goal of acquisition-driven instruction, according to Kara Jacobs, who made this presentation? Or according to you? Oh, number 3. I forget what number 3 is, Martha. We're about to see it. Oops. There we go. So moving students up the proficiency ladder in the 3 modes of communication. And probably the first mode of communication that they're really kind of becoming most proficient in would be interpretive, right? Because we're giving them all that input. And then eventually comes presentational and interpersonal. Good. And I like, Martha, being able to use the language. That's great, right? Being able to communicate in those 3 modes of communication. Good. Not know all the verb tenses, right? Okay. And what is proficiency? Okay. So proficiency, are we marking off? Oh, sorry, Gary. Yes. Gary asked, are we marking off each thing that you say or only the question? So on your grid, sorry if this wasn't clear, you have 9 answers. If you have one of the answers that I've shown, if you have the answer to one of the questions, then you cross it off. And then I should also have said, if someone gets 3 in a row, they win bingo. So just, oh, you have bingo, Keith, congratulations. Okay, bingo to Keith, and he gets pride, orgullo, yay, Keith. How about un aplauso for Keith? All right. And then, so we have what? Oh, Christina. Oh no, Christina reacted. Okay, people are reacting. So now we have one, we've had one winner. Oh, actually, I've been bingo already. Orgullo, yes. All right, so now what we would do is that student went 1, that's great. And now we're gonna go for 2 rows, but Keith, you have to get 2 more rows. Okay, so you could still win again, so you're still in the game, but you're going for 2 rows. So now there will always be one person who says bingo and they still just have 1 row. And you're like, yeah, we're doing 2 rows. So I would have them, I've recently started this because I feel so embarrassed for them when they're like, bingo. And I say 2 rows and they say no. And you just feel for them because everybody's like, I can't. Anyways, so partners, I would say, okay, look at your partner and show your best chance where you could win. And that's helped. Oh, Martha, you won too. Okay. Well, Martha, you just have to get 1 more since you weren't the first person to say bingo. All right, so what is proficiency? So proficiency is being able to use the language in the 3 modes of communication. So that is what proficiency is. Okay, and then what are the 3 modes of communication? Anyone want to quickly type that in the chat, try to make it a little bit more interactive? Who can be first? Type it in the chat, the 3 modes of communication. Nice, Martha. All right. And so again, to some of you, this is, you know this so well, but the purpose of this was, again, to refresh and to maybe introduce some new ideas here. But yeah, those are the 3 modes of communication. Great. So interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational. And you could type this in the chat too, which mode of communication includes spontaneous responses to input? Oh, Barbara, you're only responding to me. So you were the first one, Barbara, but I'm the only one who saw it. All right, good. Yes, and that is interpersonal, which again, at the novice level, sometimes interpersonal and presentational are the same because novices, their interpersonal is things that they've memorized. Okay, and then which mode of communication are students least likely to use in everyday life if they were on a trip? Oh, I don't know. I like this because I used this on a trip this summer. If they were on a trip or if they were studying abroad or if they were just living in another country, which mode are they least likely? Martha, all right, Martha's killing it. Good. So presentational, right? Our students aren't really walking around when they're going somewhere or, intermediate language, people who have intermediate proficiency aren't really making presentations typically. And then, okay, this question, how many proficiency levels and sub-levels are there? There are a lot. So probably no one knows the answer to this one, unless you had it written down, right? 45, yeah, so 45. So there's novice, intermediate, advanced, superior, and distinguished. And then they all have low, mid, and high. And then it's also in the 3 modes of communication. So there's a lot of boxes. If you look at that chart where our students and where we as native speakers or speakers of another language, we're all bilingual or multilingual here, I'm assuming, we fall into different categories in the different modes of communication. Okay, we don't have another winner yet, huh? Keith doesn't have 3 and no one else has 2 rows of 3. All right. Okay. What is a good, reasonable proficiency goal for a high school program, levels 1 or high school, middle school, or, whatever your school is, but from levels 1 through 5 or AP? What do you think? So intermediate, Jeanette, she's got it. Right. So it is intermediate, mid, or high. Yep. Great. So that's not just me. That's, I think, on the next slide. Let's see if I have it. Yeah, I have that on the next slide, but just a little note. So a 3 on the AP test is considered intermediate mid, a 4 or 5 intermediate high, and a 5 on the AP test would be advanced. So if we look at this slide from ACTFL, and again, I'll share this with you, and this is linked so you can check my sources, but I really like this. Oh, Keith got a second row of bingo. Nice. Oh, wait. So do you have 3 total? Or you just have your second? Oh, okay. You win again. All right. Keith wins again. But we will keep going to see if we can get another person with 2 rows before we go for a full board. Okay. All right. So on this, I really like this because it kind of gives us, if we're familiar with the proficiency levels, we can use this to kind of decide what should we really be teaching, right? And I think most people, if they're here at this conference, probably have an understanding of this, that teaching all the verb tenses, like all of them, all of the perfect tenses and everything, that's not really what we should probably be shooting for, because our students really are not going to reach that level in high school. Okay. And at which proficiency level can speakers narrate and describe in all, and this is what I was just referring to, in all major timeframes using connected discourse of paragraph length, but not all the time? Okay, so Arlie said advanced. Let's see what we got. And it actually is intermediate high. So again, that's not many of our high school students are reaching that level, because most programs, go up to level 4, some 5 or AP. But that's just an idea that all those major timeframes, maybe we shouldn't really be focusing on that. Okay, and then how do we deliver CI? Oh, I want to hear your ideas for this one. How do we deliver CI? If you could just drop that in the chat. How do we deliver comprehensible input? What are the ways that we comprehensify the language that we're giving to our students? TPRS, teaching proficiency of reading and storytelling. TPR, so movement, personalized questions and answers, storytelling, story asking, pictures, that's what I was thinking of, gestures, drawing, stories, PQA. I think of a lot of gestures, calendar talk, student interview. There's so many different ways, right? Pictures and gestures. I noticed, I don't know if other people do this, but when you're talking to regular people, you're still using your hands. And I think, okay, everybody speaks English and I'm in an IEP meeting. I should not be using my hands as much. But definitely those gestures, good drawing, pictures, great. So let's see what I forget my answer, but there's so many ways. Yeah, so many ways, right? Words, pictures, actions, scaffolded readings. I think someone mentioned that, maybe that was Keith, scaffolding. That's great. All right, let's see. And what is, so there's some confusion. This summer, I did a teacher trip to Costa Rica, focused on ADI, and there was some confusion about this. So TPRS is teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling. Okay, do we have anyone? Has anyone else won bingo? If I missed it, no one else has 2 rows? No, okay. And then the next question, what is TPR? Total physical response. So sometimes, again, sometimes these are confused and people kind of flip-flop them, or maybe, I think this summer teacher was saying, no, it used to be this, it used to be that, but just so TPRS is teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling, and TPR, total physical response. Okay, in addition to the 3 modes of communication, what else does ACTFL have proficiency levels for? Oh, Gary, get the bingo. Gary, and Orgullo, you get the pride. All right, so now we're going to go for a full board. So you're trying to cross out the entire board. And just a little, oh, Martha has 3 also. All right, and I'll get back to this question in a second, but I can see that Meredith answered it. Good. Did Meredith answer? No, Martha answered it. So imagine playing this with students, right? We're doing it with the base of knowledge that most people have here, but there's so many things you can do, right? And you can pause. And again, I have the questions projected, but students would be just hearing the questions and they would have all of the answers projected. And I would be probably like bolding an answer once we set it so that everybody can possibly win. That page is not available. All right. So back to this question. Yes, ACTFL has proficiency levels for intercultural competence. So, which I love. I love these. So intercultural competence, I'm not going to read this all to you. You can get back to it later, but I love it. It's kind of giving students dispositions, attitudes, understanding, and skills that will enable them to interact with people in the world who speak these languages. So this is kind of some academic stuff that we won't get too into right now, but great to come back and check out. And then you can see these are the proficiency levels. So this is something I think people are familiar with, the 3 modes of communication and the intermediate, or novice, intermediate, advanced, and then the mid or the low, mid, high, but maybe not so much with these intercultural communication, which I really like. So you can see the novice, and this is where we start to get into those 3 Ps, the novice, the intermediate, and then advanced. And you can even see, oh, sorry, losing my screen. The distinguished, it's always interesting to look at the distinguished, right? In other cultures, I can objectively evaluate products and practices and mediate perspectives. And in the distinguished, for the 3 modes of communication and for this, just because someone is from a certain culture and they're a native speaker does not mean they're distinguished. And you probably can read that and think of some people who might not be distinguished. Maybe I'm not even distinguished, but just another thing to consider. Okay, and then what are the 3 main components of culture? Oh, I just said them, but let's see who can drop it in to the chat, the 3 main components of culture in the world language classroom. I think I just mentioned them. Yes. The 3 Ps, products, practices, and perspectives. Good. And when we talk about products, it's not, I have to say this to students, that word in English, for most of our students, I would think products, they think of like things that you buy, but products can just be, I even say, I mean, not necessarily, products aren't really people, but things. And a person, you can get from a person, like a famous person, to practices, to perspectives. But products, we need to remember and teach students that it's not like a Coca-Cola or a Inca Cola. It could be anything. Okay, and then what are the 6 AP themes? I teach AP, so I have this in here. I don't have anything in IB about IB in here. Does anyone know any of the 6 themes? If you want to drop them in, or maybe a favorite theme or a least favorite theme. Even if you don't teach AP. Oh, Martha with her 4th bingo. Oh, Jeanette wins the full board. Congratulations, Jeanette. You get mucho orgullo. You can walk around feeling good about yourself all day today. Okay, we're going to keep playing just to go over all of these things and see if anyone else can get full board. We can have more than one. Okay, so those are the AP themes. Even if you don't teach AP, your school doesn't have AP, you don't believe in AP because you don't like the College Board, which I can understand a lot about that too as well. get all of that. I really love these themes for building a curriculum. And I think that our story, I'm imagining it's the same in the different languages, but in the Spanish one, these themes and the sub themes are the units throughout. And that's one of the things I just love. My least favorite of these is science and technology. I'm so bad at it, but I love global challenges. That's my favorite and my specialty. And I could see some favorites over here: families, communities, la belleza. I'm really not good at the beauty and aesthetics either, but I love these themes kind of to organize. And I was looking at something recently, and all of their units were these throughout all their courses, which I thought was great. And what's the difference between proficiency and performance? This is really important to understand. So proficiency is real world. It's what students can do if you plop them out, right? Or it's just unexpected. But performance is what students can do in the classroom. So oftentimes a student's performance level is higher than their proficiency level, because you've been talking about Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera for a long time, and you've been talking about their art, and they have all this stuff. So when it's time for them to perform, to do, say, a simulated conversation or a cultural comparison, or I'm in the AP mindset because I was just correcting those this morning. Students can look really high, but if you plop them out in the world, their proficiency level is actually lower. So that's something that's really important, that we're oftentimes measuring their performance level, not necessarily their proficiency level. Tests like the Avant test or the Apple, or even the AP tests. I don't know much about the IB, but they would be measuring more proficiency because it's unexpected and just throwing things at them. Okay. Some have some recommended reading here for some of that stuff was new. Did anyone else get full board bingo? Or was it just, who won it? Jeanette, I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly. I hope that's correct. Okay, so we just reviewed, it's almost like we reviewed things from these texts. So recommended reading, if some of those things were new to you, actually, let me do just a little check there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you knew everything in there, that was just like you could have created this, you could have made it better, you could have included some more things, maybe you could have emailed me later, like, Carrie, just so you know, you should fix this. That's a 10. And a 1 is all this is new to me. I have no idea what CI is. The information in there, where did you fall kind of in that? Okay, good. So there was some new stuff to people. I'm just curious if it was something was new. Okay, good. 7, 8, 7. Okay, great. Okay, good. So there was some new information, or hopefully, if anything, it was a good refresher. So these are some books that one of my favorites to kind of learn more about ADI, acquisition driven instruction, and CI and how it all works. My favorite one is While We're on the Topic by Bill Van Patten. I highly recommend that. It is pretty dense, but that book for me, we read that as a department a few years ago, and it helped me so much to just be able to see more clearly what I'm doing in the classroom, what I should be doing, and what maybe I shouldn't be doing. I also, for social justice, I didn't get into the social justice standards here, but I love, kind of got into intercultural competence. I love the words and actions. This is an actual publication, Teaching Languages Through the Lens of Social Justice. Another Bill Van Patten book is this one. And then Common Ground is a great one that just came out recently with Maris Hawkins and Florencia. A lot of people are talking about that. My department is reading that now as well. And then another really good one for interpretive is Breaking the Sound Barrier. So that's by Gianfranco Conti and Steve Smith. Bethany Drew recommended that. If you know Bethany, she's amazing. And anything she recommends, I get. So that would be kind of our text that we read, that we just reviewed with Quick Good Bingo. For New Massachusetts. Oh, that's great, Martha. So I'm curious, how many of you have, I should have asked this at the beginning, how many of you have played Quick Grid Bingo in your class? if you want to just drop it in the chat. I can't see everyone. I see Nella is waving. So a couple times. Yeah. So a lot of people have played it. Okay. Or 2 people have answered and played it. Okay. Okay. So looks like we're half and half. Yeah. And again, this was from Martina Beck's that I got the idea. Now, a couple of other things, we have a little bit more time that I want to show you that you could do. It's not necessarily, well, quick grid bingo, I guess it's just a 3x3, but a couple other things that you can do for listening bingo. One that I just did the other day, you could do it if you have a video that is, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes long, or even an audio, doesn't even have to be a video. So I just want to show you this that I did where in my class there and said 4, 5, 6. It's a combined class, so that's it's one group. But we are deciding every Friday we watch a video series, and they've watched Go Viva tu Manera in level 3 and level 4. So they're kind of all over the place. So they've done a lot of that, and now so we're choosing a different series to watch. So what I did was I took the trailers, and they're deciding between 2, and I took quotes. So you could do this with any video. You could just take things that the students are going to hear, like sentences. So instead of, they make a 3x3 grid, and then they fill in things that they're going to hear in the video. And then, so these were quotes from the series, and we just called it trailer bingo. So they put in things that they would hear, and then as they're watching, they're crossing it off. It was really good. This would probably be mostly for upper levels. You could also do it with things that you're going to read, right? So I don't know, that might be a little bit complicated, but there's so many ways you could use this game, and it just makes it a little bit more interactive for them. The other thing that you could do this with, or does anyone have any questions about trailer or video bingo? Does that make sense? No. Okay. Then the other one, which I think a lot of people have probably seen, is bingo musical. I love this one. Let's see. Let me just find that link. Let's do this one. So this is, again, it's a 3x3 grid. So it keeps it shorter, right? Rather than a 5x5, which is kind of a lot. There's 2 different things you could do. There's a visual, or it says visual listening, but that doesn't really make sense. It should just be a visual bingo. So you would, and again, it doesn't have to be with a music video. This could be with any video. So you give students a list of things that they're going to see or not see. You can include like distractors that they might not see, and then they fill it in. Then you watch the video and they cross it out as they see it. So you're giving them input with things. And I love the idea. I've only played this with bingo musical, but I love it for any video that they're going to watch. And then, so they see the video, they're more focused on what they're seeing. So this is also a great way to talk about cultural products. And then you could follow it up with things that they will hear. So this is tricky for students. So depending on the level, you'd want to give them things that they're going to hear a lot or repetitively. Oh, and Maribel asked, do I use 2 songs for this activity? Just 1 video for this one. Yeah, I would just do 1 video, so they would watch it twice. And I might even stop it. We might not watch the whole thing. Yeah, this is great. And this, I can drop this in the chat. I have a whole bunch of them here. I played this during when we were remote a lot. Oops, I didn't copy it. Hold on. Yeah, so that's bingo musical. And for those of you who are doing Locura de Marzo, it's really easy to do. And it'd be great if people did them and shared them, because that's just a different way to delve into music and music videos. Okay. So does anyone have any other ideas? As I was talking, I was kind of coming up with ideas, but does anyone have any other ideas that you could do with this bingo? So we have reviewing a text with questions and answers. And just so that, let me just back up here. I think I got rid of it. So for me, what I do when I create this is just show you what it looks like from the teacher. What I create from one. This is from La Leyenda del Coquí, which is a legend that we read. And so I project this to students. So this is what it looks like. And I project that so they can see it the whole time. And then for me, I make up the questions so I know what I'm going to say. And then I write the answer. So I have this sheet printed out, and then this is projected for students. That's why it's nice and big. So we play this game a lot, and it's great. Especially I'm teaching middle school right now, my little 8th grader Spanish one, because I couldn't find a teacher. And this is a great activity for them. They're quiet, and they're getting really good input because we're repeating the question, they're listening, they're reading, even they're writing. And then hopefully we did it here in the chat, but as I'm giving people time to process the question, and then finally I'll ask someone to say the answer, so they could be speaking as well. Okay, so I kind of asked the question. Oops, I asked the question and then didn't wait for people to answer. But does anyone have any other ideas that you could do with this type of activity? Either trailer, bingo, or quick grid bingo with the text. Oh, characters in a novel. There are lots of them. Yeah, that would be great, right? If there are lots of them, you could have, so we have 9 people. You could, if you have more than 9, that would be good. Or even if you have 9, you can make it really short and quick, because sometimes this can go on, like our game just went on for a long time. But if you just want to do a quick game, I like that idea. Or you could even do, Keith, if you didn't have 9 people, you could do like 5 people in 5 places or something, but keep it really, really simple. That's a great idea. Any others? AR verbs, students wrote their verbs in Spanish, but work to say a sentence in English using those verbs. Okay. Or you could even, so Dulce, thinking about that, you could even, like if you're trying to focus on patterns of verb endings, you could even have them write sentences. Let's see, how could you do it? You could give them answers to questions that you're going to ask. So then they'd be hearing the you form, and then they'd be writing the I form to make it maybe a little bit more communicative. But I like that if you want to focus on form. Let's see. Let's see, locura de marzo. Yeah, with the locura de marzo, I love that idea. I'm using Senor Ashby's list, and I think I'm going to develop that for next week. I'm on vacation. Well, vacation's ending this week, but for next week, you could use this with some pre-made activities where there are questions and answers already. Yes, Erin, yes, right. If you don't even have to come up with the questions and answers. You just go into Voces and find like the comprehension questions or anything, and then you just have your answers, your questions and answers. That is even better and easier. Oh yeah, with the Go activities. Yeah, with the Go, all those Go, Viva tu manera activities. Yeah, or if you have, anything that has comprehension questions, which is like the most basic resource that usually, if you have a story, you have comprehension questions. You don't even have to create them. That's even better. Any others? No. Okay. Well, I don't think I have any more to share on that. But if anyone, I can see, let's see. I was going to say, I have lots of quick good bingos. If anyone uses any of my units, reach out to me because I have quite a few here. If you're a Spanish teacher, but I like this because it was. I like this session because it's applicable to any language, not language specific. And then hopefully, can I show my El Silbón resource? Maribel, I think that one is actually from, I might have copied and pasted that from another publisher's comprehension question. So I don't think I can share that one. Sorry. Oh yeah, Meredith, that'd be great, right? With other subject areas, although don't just keep it just keep it in your class. The other teachers will just ruin it. Sorry, I know that's bad, but I like to just, no, yes, that is a good idea, Meredith, I agree. I am not going to share it because some of the other teachers might ruin my idea. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Hopefully that was a good, as I said at the very beginning, hopefully it's a good two-part an activity you can use, and then just a refresher on some of these, all the language and acronyms and things we're supposed to take into consideration when we're teaching a world language. It's so much. So hopefully that was a good refresher. Oh, and I will share this in the chat right now so people can have it. And again, this idea was from Martina Beck, so thanks to her for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kira. That was wonderful.
Welcome.
I will say that the like the reminder part of it was very nice. And one part that just kind of struck me, and it may have struck other people, is just the difference between measuring performance versus proficiency. I mean, I do think that like that's all blurred a lot of the time. And it's just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, if they've been studying Frida Kahlo or something and hearing and reading and everything, then yes, they can write at length about it, but you know, give them some other topic and they might not be able to. So yeah, it's just interesting.
Right. Or an argumentative essay about Encanto and is it an inclusive and authentic representation? And they've read this deep article about Disney and the new colonialists, and they can write about that. But like that's only because we spent a lot of time doing it, right? Their performance is very high, but
yeah. And which is not a bad thing, but it's a good thing to remember the difference about. So
yeah, definitely.
And yeah, what a great you know, some great tools that teachers can use with anything, no matter the language. So thank you so much, Kara.
You're
We're always
welcome.
happy to have you. And just a reminder too, which I mentioned in the intro, but Kara and Alyssa Quintero wrote the activities for Go, Vive a tu manera, and all the Voces Spanish titles. We just sent out a survey about it, and we got really awesome responses and everything. But one common one, like not very common, but slightly common, was, what? We have Go? So I just wanted to say it to everyone here. If you have a Spanish title for Voces, you do have access to that wonderful series. It's like super cheesy, but so fun, you know, for students. And the activities are fabulous. So
thank you. Great. Okay. And hope to see some of you in Savannah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording and then